Picture this: you've spent weeks, maybe even months, meticulously crafting the perfect compost. Dark, crumbly, smelling of rich forest earth, pure black gold for your garden. You proudly spread it into your garden beds, dreaming of a bountiful harvest. But a couple of weeks later, instead of vibrant vegetables, you're faced with an impenetrable jungle of weeds. Sound familiar? Today, we're going to uncover why your best garden helper, compost, can suddenly turn into your worst enemy. And I'll name 3 specific plants that are orchestrating this green betrayal. Brace yourself, because you might be doing it right now. Composting truly is magic. We take organic waste, grass clippings, leaves, kitchen scraps, and let nature transform it into invaluable fertilizer. It's eco-friendly, cost-effective, and incredibly beneficial for your soil. The idea is simple. Everything that comes from the earth should return to it. But, like any good story, there's always a villain. Or, more accurately, 3. And they hide in plain sight, disguised as common plants that just beg to be tossed into your compost pile. But these are the very plants with a cunning superpower to survive, multiply, and conquer your garden, using your own precious compost as their personal transport system. Now let's talk about our first enemy. I call it the immortal invader. These are plants with powerful creeping roots, capable of regenerating from seemingly nothing. The prime example in this group is field bindweed, also known as creeping jenny. Its white, cord-like roots are its real superpower. Even a tiny half-inch piece of root left behind in the soil can sprout into a new, fully fledged, and incredibly aggressive plant. And here's what often happens. You painstakingly pull this stubborn weed from your garden bed. Feeling triumphant, you toss it onto your compost pile. You're absolutely convinced it will rot down, decompose, and turn into valuable fertilizer. But you're making a monumental, even fatal error. Your compost pile isn't its grave. It's the perfect incubator. In the warmth and moisture, these root fragments don't just survive. They rest, gather strength, and prepare for a new invasion. For them, it's a luxury health resort. Then, comes spring, when you lovingly scatter that wonderful, mature compost over your garden beds. Congratulations! You've just personally seeded your entire plot with hundreds of small but incredibly resilient bindweed clones. Each root piece will unleash a new shoot, and your fight will resume with renewed, even greater, vigour. This principle isn't exclusive to bindweed. Quackgrass or couchgrass, ground elder or goutweed, and other perennial weeds with creeping roots behave exactly the same way. Remember this: if a plant propagates via its roots, it absolutely does not belong in your compost. You're not enriching your soil, you're infesting it. Now let's talk about the second type of troublemaker in our compost pile. I call them the silent sowers. These are any weeds you've pulled after they've already gone to seed, or even just finished flowering. The classic and most obvious example is the dandelion. You spot its bright yellow flower, pull it out, and toss it into the compost without a second thought. Think the problem solved? Not so fast. Even after being pulled, that flower continues its life cycle. Right there in the pile, it quietly matures and transforms into that familiar, white, fluffy seed head, the dandelion clock. And here's where it gets really interesting. Many gardeners cling to the myth that high compost temperatures will sterilise and kill off all seeds. But let's be honest, in most typical backyard compost piles, the temperature rarely reaches the necessary 60 to 70 degrees Celsius evenly throughout, and certainly doesn't stay that high for long enough. Weed seeds, especially resilient ones like dandelions or lamb's quarters, survive just fine. The result? You end up with fertilizer literally packed with thousands of viable seeds. A single dandelion seed head can produce up to 200 seeds. Now imagine how many of those you've tossed into your compost over the summer. When you add this compost to your garden beds, you're essentially carpet bombing your entire plot with weed seeds. They'll sprout the moment conditions are right, and your battle against them will become a never-ending one. And finally, the third, and perhaps most insidious, type of hazardous plant waste. I call it patient zero. This refers to any plant matter, such as leaves or stems, that has been infected by fungal or bacterial diseases. A prime and often painful example for many gardeners is tomato foliage affected by late blight. Everyone has seen those unsightly brown spots on leaves and stems. But these aren't just spots, they're a veritable breeding ground for spores. Late blight spores, like those of many other diseases, are incredibly resilient, and they absolutely love to overwinter in your compost pile. For them, it's not just a shelter, but a cosy and nutritious resort where they patiently bide their time. Then, in spring, a true act of sabotage occurs. You lovingly and carefully incorporate this seemingly beneficial compost into your garden, intending to plant new healthy tomatoes. But what you're actually doing is infecting the soil and your future plants from day one. The cycle completes and the disease returns year after year. This isn't just limited to tomatoes. Rose leaves with black spot, squash and cucumbers with powdery mildew, apple foliage ravaged by scab. All of this is biological weaponry that should under no circumstances be added to your compost pile. You're simply creating a source of infection for the following year. Here's the surprising truth. The biggest harm to our gardens often comes from our own good intentions. We think we're getting rid of a problem by tossing weeds or diseased plant matter into the compost. But in reality, we're giving it new life. We're creating an army that will wage war against us next season. Think of bindweed, which can resurrect from even a tiny root fragment, dandelions whose seeds patiently bide their time in the warm compost, and blight, which transforms your black gold into a breeding ground for disease. This isn't just a mistake, it's setting the stage for major future problems. Remember, proper composting is the key to a healthy garden. Improper composting, however, is a ticking time bomb. By avoiding these 3 types of plants, you'll save dozens of hours on weeding and treating plants in the future. You won't be working harder, but smarter. Thanks for watching this video until the end. If you found it helpful and perhaps saved your future harvest, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. Now, a question for you. What forbidden plants do you never put in your compost? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's help each other avoid common mistakes.